and welcome to yet another episode of MBL Blitz. I'm your host, Spencer Murray. This is your home for news and updates here around the league. This is October 11th, 2016. We are currently in Week 13. Let's get straight into it. We're going to kick things off here on MBL Blitz with a recap of a story from the first episode. Vincent Jackson and Tampa Bay had some contract negotiation issues early on in the season. They were just completely stalled out. Nothing was even being done. So, update on that. VJax hasn't even seen the field that much this season, let alone on the MBL Live game in Week 11. He was nowhere to be found, not on the field. I don't even think he was on the sideline. I'm sure he didn't travel with the team. They're clearly done with each other. Humphreys seemed to be a decent replacement. He was catching balls and looking solid opposite Mike Evans. So on the VJax side of things, he believes he still has some left in the tank. I could see it. A veteran receiver, sure hands, he's going to go somewhere. I sat back and looked at some rosters to see maybe, pre-draft, where could he land? Here's some thoughts. Detroit. Anquan Bolden is probably going to be hanging him up here soon. Vincent Jackson can easily step into that role as that big red zone guy and take over. Golden Tate, is your number one, clearly. Marvin Jones is your second go-to guy. With Jackson, you're going to have that big guy to throw up to. Ebron isn't really, guaranteed to catch those big balls. But Jackson, he's been there. Another team would be LA, the Rams. The Rams have had horrible luck with wide receivers. Tavon Austin is inconsistent. Kenny Britt has never really jumped out and made a name for himself. There's not really a big guy there. Bring in Vincent Jackson for a year, maybe 2 years, and you could possibly make yourself a run in that tough NFC West. Seattle is already dominating defensively, so you have to find a way to mix it up and get your guys open. And Vincent Jackson would be that guy. They're going to be looking for him short, so they're going to play a couple of guys short, and you're going to have one guy mismatched somewhere. So that's another spot. Speaking of Seattle, that would be another one. Could you imagine Doug Baldwin, Vincent Jackson, Kearse, Lockett, Jimmy Graham, tons of receivers to throw to? Russell Wilson wouldn't know what to do with himself. They're already dominating in the NFC West, making a huge push for the playoffs. It would make sense if they come up short this year to next year, go for Vincent Jackson, let him play for a year, and just, have that extra person, the extra sure guy to throw to. Those three teams seem the best fits. Everybody else has the big possession receiver, or they already have about 6 or 7 guys. So those three teams would make tons of sense for Vincent Jackson to land. He's going to be fresh. He's not going to be playing much in Tampa, so he'll be fresh in the offseason, ready to go. Probably still in shape if he feels like he's got more left in the tank. And you're just looking for him to step in and use that last bit of juice he has for a good playoff push. Now, secondly, another thing that's been huge this season in the NBL has been injuries, and they have definitely carried on here going into the backstretch of the season. Plenty of key players on injured reserve. Just looking here, let's see, Darren Sproles, Doug Martin, huge IR. The Texans signed someone that was already going to be injured the whole year, Will Hill, safety. It's kind of a huge just spot being taken up there on the team. But that's just a few. There are plenty of injuries in the NBL, but here lately, some very big ones have gone down. We're going to start with the wide receivers in Houston. Braxton Miller and Will Fuller both go down. for the same amount of time, nothing is going to change this 4-7 Texans team from struggling. Osweiler, his completion percentage may deceive you with it being 70%, but if you take a look at his stats, he's throwing 12 touchdowns to 22 interceptions. His decision making is definitely poor. He's not making great throws, and it's leaking into the locker room. With these two injuries, reports out of Houston are that the wide receivers are insanely frustrated with Osweiler's play, and they're not even giving themselves 100% every game. They're trying to stay healthy. So if Osweiler's leading them into a deadly route over the middle, 9 times out of 10 they're going to pull up and they're not going to try for the catch, because with Fuller and Miller going down, they don't want to end up on the bench themselves. So it's looking kind of rough there in Houston. I've gotten a couple calls saying the front office is very, very disappointed in the Osweiler signing, and the rumors are they may be looking for a way to get out of it here in this offseason. I don't know how solid those are, but based on the frustrations in the locker room and his play on the field, that's the only common denominator. He has to go, or someone has to come in and take his job until he can prove himself to be the player that was signed that much money. Clearly, there's a lot going on in Houston, and hopefully this offseason they can get it straightened out and these players can start enjoying the game again. Keeping on here with this injury bug, it's reached Green Bay. Breaking news at the Green Bay. Rodgers done for the season. Fractured bone in his foot. Not going to be back in time for the playoffs. It's week 13. He's got 7 weeks left. He's not going to make it. 4 weeks and then playoffs. If the Packers were to make it to later rounds of the playoffs, conference championship, Super Bowl, he'd be back. But they're saying that they're going to give him a rest, try their best with the rookie Hundley, and hope that they can make that push and possibly win. I don't see it happening. Hundley's having a tough time going as it is. 24 for 41 in his last few games. 312 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. He's only completing less than 60% of his passes. He's been sacked 4 times, so he's holding on to the ball. He hasn't had many starts, if any, and he's making mistakes that young players would make. It's going to be tough with Jordy gone too. There's still plenty of weapons in Green Bay. Jordy's nice, but you've got Cobb, you've got Adams, you've got Jared Cook, Richard Rodgers, and Ruben Randall's ready to step up as that big receiver. It's possible, but I don't see it happening. Rodgers going down is huge. He's had a somewhat quiet year. I think he's got maybe 13 touchdowns on the year. But you got the running attack with Lacey that could still hold itself out. I think he's nearing 1,000 yards. It's possible, and it's somewhat smart. I would have maybe looked at free agency for a veteran QB that's has greater accuracy maybe in the short game, and have him just be in there to manage. Hundley, he knows the playbook. He's been there. It makes sense, but it's going to be rough, and it's going to be a bit difficult to watch. Definitely something to keep your eye on. These injuries are starting to pile up here at the end of the season and affecting many of these playoff teams. So we're just going to have to see how it all pans out and hope that these teams end up in the best possible positions they can. Let's take a quick break here. I'm going to remind you guys, if you haven't yet, to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you have a Twitter account, you can follow us at Bomber League and at MBL Network. Plenty of content from August to August. We are constantly running on 100% during Madden season, and you will not be disappointed. Before I get to my last and biggest story of the show, I want to touch on something that is a little bit different. I'm going to look at the AFC Playoff hunt. We're coming up on the backstretch of the season. 4 more weeks left in Season 1 here in the MBL, and I want to give my take on the top 6 playoff seeds, on who's going to make it and why. Let's start here at number 1. As you can see on the graphic here, Pittsburgh. They're sitting at 9-2, and it's huge. I mean, they are having a great year. Big Ben just slinging the ball, and there's no one to stop them. Maybe the Bengals, but that's only one loss leading up to the end of the season. I've got them projected for a 13-3 record, definitely keeping the number one seed in that home field advantage and that first round bye. I don't see anyone personally stopping their way to the Super Bowl. The only team would be Cincinnati. The Jags are a great team, but the Steelers, run 150% the whole game. The Patriots, the whole AFC East is still up in the air. The Patriots seem to be the favorite there, but I don't see them beating Pittsburgh. I don't see the Raiders beating Pittsburgh. I don't see anybody in the AFC beating Pittsburgh. So they're my clear-cut number one. Going into the number 2 seed, it's a little rough here. I'm going to say Jacksonville takes it. The AFC South is, to put it bluntly, weak. The Jags are clearly running away with it, and they probably will hold the AFC South for years to come. So my projection for the Jags, I see a 10-6 record. I don't see them losing too many games here towards the end of the season. They're doing great things, and they're going to have that number 2 spot. And I don't think I can see them making it into the AFC Championship, but I don't see them winning it. The only team I could see them being beat by is Cincinnati, and that would be a huge AFC Championship game. I'll get into that later. 3rd seed, I'm going to go with the Patriots. The AFC East is up in the air right now, but as of right now, the Patriots lead in division wins. The Pats and the Jets have the same record, but it is the Patriots have won all their division games. So if they keep winning, I have them projected going 9-7. As long as they win those division games, they can walk away with this division. Not hard. The Jets are on a 2-game losing streak, so this is the chance for the Pats to put the gas pedal down to the floor and just push. Number 4 seed is going to be from the AFC West as the Oakland Raiders, making a trip to the playoffs. I've got him projected to go 10-6. AFC West is kind of a coin toss this year, but he is also leading in division wins, and that is a key factor in nailing that division spot for the playoffs. And it's gonna be close, but I think Fat can pull it off. That offense is rolling, and even with Carr going down with that injury, Cook's been playing great, and it's just. It makes sense. Now, the wild card spots, I had my heart set, week 4 or 5 of the season. Cincinnati's definitely going to be one. They are clearly one of the top teams in the AFC, and being in the AFC North behind the Steelers, it's going to be a fight every year for one of those two to make that top spot. So, Sonny and the Bengals get in at number 5, no questions. But number 6, I had the Jets before this losing stint. Now I'm looking at the Chargers. They're the only other logical choice. Some of these records out here look a little rocky, and the Chargers clearly have the talent to win a Super Bowl. And it's all going to come down to who wins these next few games here towards the end of the season. I don't see anybody beating out San Diego, and I've got them projected to go at least 11-5, which would set them up in that spot. I didn't mention before, but I've got Cincinnati projected for a 12-4 season. It's tough up there in the AFC North, but those two clearly, the Steelers and the Bengals clearly know what they're doing against every team they play, and they know how to, stomp them into the ground. So, that's pretty much it. You got your 6 teams there. And the NFC is anybody's game as well, even though the Lions are over there dominating. So we could potentially see a Steelers-Lions Super Bowl, or maybe even a Cincinnati-Lions Super Bowl. Any 6 of these teams could make it in there. It all is going to come down to great defense this year. So I'm really looking forward to how it all pans out and how close my projections actually are. As with every weekend from now on, after the MBL Blitz podcast drops on Tuesdays, Commissioner's Corner will follow up on Saturday, touching on a few of the stories that I nail and also dropping a bit of their own news. So look forward to that every Saturday after MBL Blitz. Alright, and last but certainly not least, we're going to hit the biggest story I've got for you here, and that is going to be the benching of LeSean McCoy for Tevin Coleman in Buffalo. It was reported on this a while back. Tevin Coleman was traded for in week 3, and he's apparently took the starting job from McCoy with no intention of giving it back. It happened week 7. He got his first start with 21 carries and 100 yards for 2 touchdowns, but we'll get into that later. But this is huge news. I mean, LeSean McCoy is clearly a star. He's up there in age, but he's not at that point where you should be worrying about trying to find another spot or another player for him. But Buffalo made a huge move, and it seems to be paying off. Just a look at some of these stats here. McCoy was averaging about 15 carries a game and about 60 yards on top of that. He had one big game of 12 carries and 96 yards, but he only hit pay dirt twice in the running game, and Buffalo just had enough of it and let Coleman start, and from then on he's ran away with it. 21 carries for 100 yards in that game with 2 touchdowns. The next game, 13 carries for 144 and a touchdown, and so on. He even had a bigger game with 10 carries for 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's huge. Taking a look at the graphic here we've got sitting up, Shady's only averaging 3.9 yards a carry, and Coleman is averaging an astonishing 6.6 yards a carry. So the question is there something wrong with Shady McCoy, or is it just Tevin Coleman is untapped talent that no one knew about? It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, unless McCoy was having a hard time grasping the playbook, Coleman is clearly the starter for the rest of the season. He has ran away with this job. 85 carries, 559 yards, and 7 touchdowns in just, his 6 or 5 starts. This is tough. Are they going to be looking to get rid of McCoy at the end of the year? Are they going to keep him as the definite number 2? This guy's got to be frustrated. I know a guy of his caliber can't just sit instantly and be happy with 5 carries in the last 5 games. That's crazy. I would personally be a little ticked off, and so far Coleman seems to be the definite starter, and there's no turning back of that way. So you've got Coleman, McCoy, and then Reggie Bush. So there's no way that Reggie Bush takes McCoy's job from him. So McCoy is looking at the definite number 2, but he's going to want more. He's going to be frustrated, and something is going to break in that locker room. So on the Coleman front, this guy must be a superstar that Atlanta was just ignoring. Yes, Devontae Freeman is a superstar as well, but if you got to be a little mad. I mean, this guy's producing in Buffalo and putting up monster numbers, and you traded him away for a 3rd-round pick. If he would have had these kind of games on a Freeman injury, he would be worth a lot more now. But now you're kind of scratching your head, do we make the right decision? So the season's coming to an end. The AFC East is looking a bit rough, so the Bills are clearly going to be pushing for a possible playoff spot. Who knows? But right now we know McCoy is definitely out and Coleman is in, and some answers have to be made. And that is going to do it for the second episode of MBL Blitz. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you're staying tuned to the MBL Network coming up this Saturday for the Commissioner Corners podcast. Also going to hit some storylines, as mentioned before in the show. Also, look to Twitter for the MBL Blitz's official Twitter account. I'll be keeping everyone up to date on news stories breaking and other happenings going on in the league. Thank you all again for listening. I look forward to bringing you more news next time.